Miami began with color. We drove in the morning. The sun was already high. The sky was so bright blue that it seemed unreal. The palm trees along the road were even, well groomed, with those big leaves swaying in the wind from the ocean. And everything around was colorful, bright, alive. I looked out the window and thought, here it is, that city that I saw in photos and movies. And we were driving through it in our white camper van with our house behind us. Look, you said and nodded forward. And the ocean, the Atlantic, dark blue with white crests of waves. Between the houses, at the end of the street, just the ocean. We are here, I said quietly. We are here, you repeated, and took my hand. We found the campsite in advance. Hallover Park, right between Biscayne Bay and the Atlantic. A narrow strip of land between two bodies of water. On one side is a bay, calm and green. On the other is the ocean, alive and endless. You parked, neatly, the first time. You've already learned, and we got out. I took a few steps and stopped. On the left is water. On the right is water. And our white camper van in the middle, like a lighthouse on a narrow island. We're going to live here for a week, I said. Yes, a whole week, you confirmed. I turned to you, in your eyes, the same as in mine. That joy that doesn't fit inside. I threw myself on your neck. You picked me up, arms around me, lifted me a little off the ground. We did it, I whispered into your neck. We really did it. We did it, you said quietly, and held me closer. Then, settling in. This is also our ritual now. You are responsible for the technical part, connecting to electricity, water, checking the generator. I am responsible for making the inside a home. While you were working outside, you went inside and laid out. There is something meditative in this process. Each thing knows its place. We have already learned where to store what in these weeks. That ceramic mug from Florida on the shelf by the window. Terracotta pillows on the sofa. A small cactus on the windowsill where the sun is the most. Our books on that shelf that you made specifically. Narrow, between the kitchen and the bed. Yes, you made the shelf. Yourself, from wood. Last week at home. Measured, sawed, fastened. I looked and thought, this man even makes things with his own hands. The bed linen, ours, from home, but which smells familiar and cozy. Towels on hooks near the bathroom, spices on the open shelf above the stove. I went to the door and looked. The house. Small, compact, but a real house. You entered and stopped. You looked around. Beautiful, you said simply. You are always surprised, I said. Every time there is something new to notice, you answered. This time, this. I went up to that bookshelf. I touched it with my hand, checking if it was holding firmly. It is holding, you said with satisfaction. You looked at it at home for a week. I laughed. I wanted it to be perfect. I went up and kissed him on the cheek, quickly, gently. He turned and looked at me with that expression of love and tenderness. For the shelf? He asked. For everything, I said. The first evening in Miami, we were sitting outside, the same folding chairs, the same table, but around, completely different. Not a quiet campsite in the middle of the forest. Miami is a city that lives loudly and brightly and does not stop. Lights on the horizon, the silhouette of skyscrapers against the evening sky, the sound of the ocean on one side and the quiet bay on the other. You opened the wine, the red one you bought on the way. You poured 2 glasses. You handed it to me. What are we drinking for? I asked. You looked around, at the city, at the water, at our camper behind you, then at me. For your courage, you said quietly. I felt something tighten in my chest, warm and tight. For your courage, I repeated. We drank. We sat in silence and watched Miami live its nightlife. Did you think a year ago that we would be here? I asked. A year ago, I was only thinking about the next deadline. You said honestly. Me too, I said quietly. You took my hand. We intertwined our fingers. It's a good thing they stopped. You said. Very good. Miami is a city that needs to be lived on foot. We walked a lot. South Beach in the morning, when there are still few tourists and the beach is almost empty. That white sand that reflects the sun and blinds the eyes. Those pastel Art Deco houses along Ocean Drive. Pink, yellow, mint, with those rounded corners that make them look like cakes. You took pictures of everything. We had already bought a normal camera, not just a phone. You stopped, aimed, and took pictures. I walked next to you and sometimes stood next to some detail, a window, a flower, the shade of a palm tree. Stop. You said sometimes. I stopped. You took pictures. What's that? I asked. You said simply, and kept walking. I followed him with that warm feeling in my chest that had already become permanent. Wynwood is a street art district. We spent the whole day there. The walls are painted from the ground to the roof. Each wall is different. Abstraction, portraits, fantastic landscapes, words that turn into drawings, colors that scream and whisper at the same time. I stood in front of one wall for a long time. It's big, a whole building. A woman in the center with her arms outstretched, with birds flying away from her. Around, flowers and leaves, and that feeling of flight. She looks like you said behind my back. I turned around. Do you think that she opened up? You said. That she learned to fly. I looked at him and couldn't say anything. I just went up and hugged her, my arms around her, my cheek against his chest. He hugged her back. But most of all, I loved mornings. Miami in the mornings is a completely different city. Quiet, gentle, not yet fully awake. I would get up at 6. You were still asleep. I would quietly make coffee on our little stove. I would go outside. The bay is glass at this time. It reflected the sky that was just starting to turn pink. Pelicans flew low over the water, the same even line that I already know. And the silence is real, before the city wakes up and begins its noisy day. I would sit on the steps and hold my coffee in both hands and think. I thought about what my morning was like a year ago. Alarm clock at 7, traffic jams, office. That tiredness that started even before lunch. That feeling that you were living someone else's life. And now, Miami Bay at 6 in the morning, coffee from our mug, pelicans, and a few minutes later, your footsteps behind me. You would go out, sit next to me, sip your coffee. We watched the morning wake up. And I thought, this is it. This is what was worth daring for, what was worth being afraid for and doing anyway. One evening we went to Little Havana. The Cuban district of Miami is alive, loud, fragrant. Salsa sounds from every bar. The smell of Cuban coffee and cigars. Old men play dominoes right on the street. Seriously, silently, as if it was the most important thing in the world. We ate in a small restaurant. Plastic chairs, paper napkins, food that was incredible. You ordered for both of us. You'd already learned a few Spanish words. I could hear you trying and couldn't help but smile. Don't laugh, you said seriously. I'm not laughing, I said. I'm admiring. You looked at me. Is there a difference? A big one, I answered. Then salsa on the street, A small area where everyone was dancing, young, old, tourists trying to imitate the locals. You held out your hand to me. I can't, I said. Me either, you said. But we'll try. And we tried. Crooked, funny, with stepping on our feet, but we danced. In the middle of Little Havana to Cuban music, among strangers who smiled at us. You pulled me closer, hand on waist, gazed straight into my eyes. We moved slower than the music, to our own rhythm. I love you, you said quietly. I love you too, I said, very much. He leaned in and kissed me, a soft, warm, real kiss, the kind that knows when to take your time. One of the locals shouted something, approving, cheerful. We laughed into the kiss. Last night in Miami, we were sitting on the roof of our camper. Yes, you found a safe way to climb up and we took towels and lay down there. Above our heads, the Miami sky. Not as starry as in the Keys, the city was shining, but its own. Warm. The city was humming below. Music was playing somewhere. The ocean was roaring behind the campsite. I don't want to leave here, I said. I know, you said. But will we go back? Definitely, you said. Miami's not going anywhere. I laughed. You always know what to say. Not always, you answered honestly. But with you, more often. I turned and looked at him, at his face in the soft night light, at those eyes that look at me, always as if I were the most important thing in sight. Thank you, I said quietly. For what this time? For daring to be the first, I said. That night when he said we were going to Florida. If it weren't for you, I would still be sitting in that office and thinking that's how it should be. You looked at me for a long time. You would have gotten there yourself, you finally said. I just got there a little early. I looked up at the sky, at that pink haze over the city, to that one star that broke through it, bright, confident. Together we arrived, I said. Together, you agreed. Your hand found mine in the darkness. We lay on the roof of our camper van above Miami and looked at the sky, and I thought, this is it. This is what made it all worth it. Listen, everyone has a fear of change. It's normal. It means you have something to lose and something to want. But there's a difference between a fear that protects and a fear that keeps you in a cage. Get out of the cage. Not all at once, one step at a time, one bold decision at a time, and one evening you will lie on the roof of your camper van above some city and think, I did it. We did it. And that feeling, it's worth it. Thank you for being here. Until next time.